It works great. What's up guys, Jeff at Shock Surplus here again with another install for you. This time around we got a Jeep JK. We are going to be doing the install on the Fox factory IQS system. It is going to be their 2.0 series shocks, so 2-inch in diameter with reservoirs, and with reservoirs, and they have the low speed compression adjusters that you could adjust from the inside of the Jeep. There is 3 different settings that Fox has predetermined. You have your soft, your medium, and your firm setting. Your medium setting is going to be your kind of your baseline setting. On the firm setting, it's going to be 60% more firm on the low speed compression than it is on the medium setting. And then on the low speed, the soft setting, it's going to be 60% softer than the medium setting. So depending on what terrain you're going to be driving on, what kind of driving you're going to be doing with the Jeep, Fox has kind of set it up to have different ranges of compression valving for you. The install is going to be pretty simple. Fox gives you everything that you need, from the zip ties to the ECU to the wiring harness. Each individual shock is labeled per corner, and when it comes to installing the actual shocks, it's going to be pretty simple. On the front, you're going to want to make sure that the reservoirs are facing or are aimed towards the rear of the Jeep, and removing the old shocks is going to be pretty simple. It's a 14mm nut on the top, and then on the bottom mount it's going to be a 18mm bolt and nut. You could take those off with the Jeep on the ground. It is easier to get the tires off, so to give you a little bit more room, but that installation and removal is pretty simple. The only difference when you are installing the Fox 2.0s on the front is you're going to be using a 3/4 wrench or a 19mm wrench on the top nut, and then the same hardware on the bottom. On the rear of the Jeep, it's on the bar pins, you're going to use 16mm socket to get the bar pin mounts off, and then the same 18mm nut and wrench, or socket and wrench for the lower mounts to get those off. And when you install the new Fox IQS shocks, you're going to want to make sure the reservoirs are facing in. Fox already has the reservoirs pre-clocked and ready to go. So we've already done the install on the shocks, so a pretty simple basic job to do. One thing that we did want to highlight is this is the wiring harness that comes with the new IQS shocks. This is the key component, and in my personal opinion, the most difficult part of the install. So we wanted to take our time to walk you through getting this wiring done. The nice thing that Fox does is they label each pigtail to let you know which way the pigtails go and what shock they go to. Your left front is going to be your driver's side front shock. Your left, your front right is going to be your passenger. You want to make sure that when you're looking at left and right, your left is going to be your driver's side, your right's going to be your passenger side. So let's get to it. All right. So one of the first things that you're going to want to do is get this front cowl off. In order to get that off, we are going to want to remove the windshield wipers with a 13mm socket. There's going to be 4 T30 bolts, 2 on this side and then 2 on the other side. And then there's going to be 4 push-in rivets on the cowl up here, 2 and then 2. You're going to want to make sure you're careful not to scratch the paint with your pop rivet tool. We've already got everything removed just for the sake of making things a little bit easier for you guys. Once you have all of that removed, you're going to want to take your cowl off. And put this aside. All right, once you got the cowl removed, you're going to want to go over to the right side, or the passenger side of the Jeep, and you're going to want to take your 10mm socket and we're going to go ahead and remove the two 10mm bolts here first. And once you have those two 10mm bolts out, you're going to want to take this smaller bracket and put that into place. And once you've got that bracket in place, you're going to want to take your 13mm socket and remove the two bolts holding the hood. And then you're going to take your other bracket and put that into place and reuse the bolts that you had just removed. Alright, once you got the brackets in place, you're going to want to take your new computer and you're going to take the three Allen bolts and lock nuts that Fox includes in the kit. And get these loosely on first. And you're going to want to take a 5/32 Allen and an 11mm wrench. If you have a longer wrench, that'll help to get to the nuts on the underside when you are on this side of the computer. Once you have the computer tightened down to the brackets, you want to make sure the brackets are tightened down to the body of the Jeep. And now you're ready to plug the harness in. Once you got the hood up, you're gonna want to take your wiring harness, feed it under the hood, and plug the harness into your ECU. And you're gonna want to make sure that you lock the harness into place. It is sealed around the harness. So if you don't lock that in properly, that seal is not going to be watertight. And once you got that in, it's time to start wiring everything up. So when you are in the fuse box, you're going to want to take your lead with the 5-amp fuse, and you're going to connect it to your M9 slot. You want to make sure you refer to your fuse box panel to let you know which one the M9 slot is. And you're going to plug this in. And you're also going to want to notch the fuse box so that you can put the fuse box cover back on without pinching this ignition wire. Once you've routed your ignition wire to your fuse box, you're going to want to connect your power leads. Black wire is going to go to your ground. And your red wire with the fuse is going to be going to your positive terminal. Once you have all that connected, you're just going to want to tidy up your wires. And you're ready to start connecting the main wiring to the shocks. You're going to want to make sure your right front goes to the right side of the vehicle, which is going to be the passenger side of the vehicle, and your harness with the LF left front or LR left rear is going to be going towards your driver's side of the vehicle. So once you've got all the wiring kind of loosely in place and you have a general idea of where everything is going to go, you could start taking the zip ties that Fox includes and start zip tying everything to the existing harness. Fox does include about 40 zip ties, so don't be shy to make sure you're using proper amount to get everything secured into place. So starting off with the right side of the wiring harness, we are going to slide the cables down through the opening into the wheel well through the oil dipstick. So we're just going to feed these wires down here. Once you've got the wiring kind of in place, you're going to want to route the use the included zip ties to route the cables as far away from the exhaust heat shield as you can. You want to make sure that those don't get too close, otherwise you're going to have melted wires. All right, now that you got the cables down through the dipstick hole and zip tied away from the heat shield, you're going to want to go ahead and start routing and zip tying the wiring to the shocks. Each pigtail is labeled RR for your rear right shock. You're going to have a FR for your front right shock, and then you're going to have a LR for your left rear shock, and then an FL or LF for your left front shock. On the right side, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of follow the brake line, the original brake line routing, and then zip tie the wiring harness to that, just because I know that brake line routing is going to be a safe space and it's not going to get snagged by anything on the trail. And then for the right rear cable, you're going to follow the passenger side frame rail and zip tie about every 2 feet just to make sure nothing gets loose. And then when you get to the rear, you're going to have you're going to notice the brake line, the hard brake lines coming out from the frame, and then you're just going to want to follow those hard brake lines to the rear of the and then we'll show you from there. All right. On the driver's side of the Jeep now, we're going to route these two harnesses down. You're going to want to go behind the brake fluid reservoir and bring the wires down to drop the wires down the wheel well there. Now that you got the wires kind of routed going down, you want to take your zip ties and just make sure you zip tie everything so that it's not all loose wires, and so nothing gets caught up on anything while you're driving down the road. And then, just like on the other side, on the front shock harness, I'm gonna zip tie that to the brake line that comes right out the wheel well. And then along this frame rail, we're gonna follow the brake lines, zip tie the rear cable to the brake lines that go along the frame rail. On the passenger side, we zip tied the rear cable to the wiring harness that went towards the back. And then where the brake lines come out into the driver's side wheel well, you're gonna wanna follow those and zip tie the cable to those hard lines to the rear shock. All right, now that you got the 4 shocks plugged into your new ECU harness, you're gonna take your switch plug connector and feed it to your 2 remaining plugs on the Fox included harness. I find it easiest to go in from the cabin to the firewall. There's a grommet that most of you guys might know in the firewall, and you just take the 2 cables, 2 connectors, push that through the firewall hole and plug it in. Fox does include 2 different switch types in the kit. They have your vertical switch, which would mount like that, and then they have your horizontal switch. So if you have, depending on what kind of switch panel you have in your Jeep, would kind of determine which one to use. Once you've got that plug, those wires pulled through the firewall, you're gonna plug your big connector to your male to your female connectors. And you're ready to mount your switch, depending on which switch mount you have, and you're ready to hit the trails. Quick test review. Don't have the switch fully mounted yet. Wanted to get a ride review before we were out of light. Right now I have it in the soft setting. So the adjustments are to your low speed compression. So going over like a speed bump like this, you're not really gonna feel the difference. With your low speed compression, you'll notice a difference, big difference, like on your daily driving route, with the amount of body roll that you get, and in the soft setting, you definitely feel some softness to the ride quality, some noticeable amounts of body roll for sure. And in the firm settings, I just switched it over to firm as we were braking, and as we were braking, it was noticeable as we were braking. There wasn't as much nose diving in the Jeep, and just in this firm setting coming down this road, noticeably firmer in the body roll. I mean, I'm very surprised at how quick the adjustments are made. Having the ability to make these adjustments on the fly without having to get out of the Jeep, turn the knobs is great. The Jeeps have all the cool toys. It's something that I've noticed. Jeeps have all the cool toys, and so this is something that I wouldn't mind having if I had a Jeep.